Who are you?
My name is Plante, and I build custom bicycles in Rancho Cucamonga.
Where are we?
Right now we're in my shed. I have two sheds on the side of my house, which I build the bikes in. One shed is more for sub-assembly and all the filing and cutting of the tubes. And I have a second shed that I have a jig in that I actually use to put together a bicycle in the form of a bike and weld them together.
And you're a cyclist, and how did that passion for cycling turn into frame building?
When I was in high school, I ended up getting a job at a bike shop and learning how to work on bikes, do adjustments and maintenance to them. I've always been into building stuff with my hand with wood and other materials, and just thought it would be really cool to eventually learn how to build bicycles by hand.
And with your interest in learning how to build by hand, how did you continue to explore that further?
I had the opportunity of actually going to a frame building school, and I decided to go to the Kochi Yamaguchi frame building school. There's a couple in the United States, but I felt he was probably the most traditional and had been doing it the longest.
And how was the experience with Yamaguchi at the frame building school?
Yamaguchi has a shop in Rifle, Colorado. The course is a 2-week course with me and one other student. You basically go to his shed in the back of his house and you learn how to build a frame from scratch. You end up building a frame and a fork, and I actually took a stem course too and built a stem. He teaches you brazing and the design of a bicycle with using lugs or without lugs.
And at the end of this course, did you end up with a bike you built with him?
Yes, you go to the bicycle. You go to his shop, and he actually measures your frame. We design a bike for me. I chose to build a road bicycle, and you end up leaving with an unpainted, finished bike.
And you talked about brazing. What is that?
Brazing is kind of a form of welding. Basically, you're using oxygen and a fuel and a torch, and you're heating up the steel to a point where you can add a melting metal such as brass or silver to bond the two metals together. Sometimes we use what's called a lug, which is an ornate sleeve that goes over the two tubes, which is just kind of more of a beauty item, and it's probably the most traditional form of bicycles is using lugs. And then we also do what's called lugless, which is not using a lug, and you build up what's called a fillet, which is basically the transition of brass to the steel tubes.
And how do you start a new bicycle?
I talk to the customer that I'm building the bike with, and we bring him in, we measure his inseam, his arm length, take all of his body measurements, and I have a program called BikeCAD, which is a program designed to help you build bicycles. So we put all those measurements into a system, and it tells me the top tube length and what type of bike, the sizing we should be building. We also take in consideration whether it's going to be a road bike, a mountain bike, and choose what types of tubes to use, whether they're going to be a stronger tube for mountain bikes, a little bit larger, or lighter weight, smaller tubes for most road bikes.
And how long does it typically take to build a bike?
At the moment, I would say 2 to 4 months, depending on the design. In hours, we're probably looking from 50 to 60 hours plus. I can also build forks. Forks are a much faster process because it's not as large, and that usually can take anywhere from 6 to 10 hours to build a fork.
And do you build other things than bikes?
I do. I've also designed a kind of unique seat post rack, which is also using all bicycle parts, such as a lug, to hold the actual rack onto the back of a seat post. And the rack is designed to hold a bag or maybe a sleeping bag to go touring or camping with.
And what bike number are you on now that you have completed?
I just finished number 10, which should probably be one of my more ambitious builds. It is basically very similar to what a modern road bike would be, with disc brakes, through axles, electronic shifting, and I did some ambitious kind of designs using shaped tubes rather than standard round tubes, which is a little harder to use and build with. I also integrated some of the braking more into the frame rather than having it external. It's internal braking, so the tube brake cable actually goes into the down tube, exits the chainstay, has electronic shifting with a battery in the seat post, and just a very modern bike but using traditional ways of building.
And after the bike is built, you also have your own bike style. How did you come up with that image?
So I felt it kind of necessary to name the bike after myself since I'm building my own bicycles. So I decided to just name it Plant Cycles after my last name. And being that my last name's Plant, I decided to go with a plant motif. So I have a leaf as my head tube image with a pea leaf. And then I also incorporated a poppy flower, since poppy is the state's flower of California, and that's where I was born and building all the bikes that I build. Also had to have it say Made in USA, and just wanted something timeless that was very elegant also.
And what would you say is next for your journey as Plant Cycles?
I would like to continue building bicycles and trying to build up my brand a little bit more. I want to maybe start building different styles of bikes, more mountain bikes. Another popular bike is called a gravel bike, which is a road bike designed for off-road and on-road. I also would like to start building or making jerseys with my logo, and just try to get my name out there a little bit more, and allow people who maybe not able to afford a full bicycle to still represent my brand.
And if we did want to find you and see what you're up to in building your custom frames and merchandise, where can we do that?
Probably my most used form of social media would be Instagram right now. I like to put a lot of the pictures on Instagram. It seems to be kind of the easiest to access, and where people see it the most. And my Instagram is Plant Cycles, plant with an E.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.